Hey guys, Davison here. I decided to do another tag tonight called My First Time. But no, it's not about my first time. Oh, at least I got a good laugh out of this. It's the first time I did a whole bunch of things that are being asked about in the following questions. So, the questions. Do you still talk to your first love? Okay, well, this is hard for me to say who my first love was. It's either my first boyfriend or the first boy that I always hung around. So the first boy I always hung around was named Kenny. And unfortunately, we don't talk anymore. I was really mean to him when I was 14 because I all of a sudden thought I was cool when I went back one summer and I saw him and he seemed kind of, and this is horrible for me to say because remember I was a teenager, he seemed kind of flamboyant, and so I spread the rumor he was gay because I was embarrassed to be around him, which is awful. It's such an awful thing for me to have done, but I was a kid. I was 14. It was much different back then. There was not much education with regards to homosexuality or even tolerance of homosexuality when I was 14. That was like over 20 years ago. So pretty awful. And after that, like I wrote him an apology letter when I was 19. And this is all before Facebook too. So I had no way of getting a hold of him other than to mail him a letter. And then I never heard from him again. And I don't know if he's married now. I don't know even if he's gay, but it was so stupid because I really liked him. He was like my first big crush. We used to hang out. We slow danced in grade 5. I wanted him to kiss me, but instead we shook hands. So anyhow, I guess he must have liked me in some way, or maybe he didn't like me because all he would do was shake my hand. I don't know. Regardless, it wasn't right. Kenny, if you're out there, I still think of you sometimes, and I'm sorry that I was such a bitch when I was 14, and it wasn't right. And to this day, I am not homophobic, and thank God things have changed in recent years. Next, wow, that was really long. That's a really long story. My other first love's name is Jamie, and he was my first everything, absolutely everything. And so I am telling you about my first time. And he has 2 kids now who are adorable. One of them looks just like him, and he's on my Facebook. But what are we gonna say to one another? Like, what's up? Oh, you're with someone else now. Oh, you got a family. Oh yeah, I remember having sex with you 20 whatever years ago. He wasn't bad. He was pretty. Jamie. Okay. Next question, because this is going to take forever and my capture is going to run out of space and it's going to get angry at me. So what was your first job? I worked at Calgary Parks and Rec as a camp monitor, and I took care of little shitty kids who were, not all of them acted shitty, but some of them were pretty shitty. One of them grabbed my boob, and then I got in trouble because I smacked him on the side of the shoulder. I didn't smack him on the face. I didn't punch him hard. I was just like, "What are you doing?" And then I got in trouble. And then you know what that little kid said too when he grabbed my boob? I always wanted to do that. Oh, he deserved me to like twist his ear, little puke. Anyhow, what was your first car? I've never owned a car, ever. I have my license. I don't drive. I still get driven by my boyfriend, or I take the frickin' bus, or I take taxis. Who was the first person to text you today? Nobody. Nobody texted me today. Would you believe that? People Facebook message me. They just don't text me. Who was the first person you thought of this morning? Myself. Followed by, I guess, my son, who was homesick from school today. Who was your first grade teacher? No idea. None whatsoever. That was 30 years ago. I have no idea. Okay. Where did you go on your first ride on an airplane? I don't know. I think my first ride on an airplane was when I lived in Nova Scotia briefly, when I was like 5. Who was your first best friend, and do you still talk? Yes, I am still best friends with my best friend Heather. She's now pregnant with her second child. She's kind of the opposite of me. She's very domestic. She's a teacher. And we sometimes fight and get mad at each other and then don't talk for 3 weeks, but then we always end up calling each other because we've just known each other for so long that it's impossible. We can't get rid of one another. I love you, Heather. Okay, who is your first best friend? Where was your first sleepover? It was at Heather's. And yeah, when we were growing up, and her mother would never watch us, so we would like sneak out of the house and go to the cemetery and look at bats. Like there were bats in the cemetery because there was like this broken greenhouse, and they lived in the broken greenhouse. You can get rabies from bats, and we were like alone when we were like 8 or 9 outside at midnight. Isn't that crazy? It was fun though. Who was the first person you talked to today? My son, because he was homesick from school. He's feeling better now. Whose wedding were you in the first time? My sister Sandy. And yeah, I wore a moss green dress. And ironically, when my best friend Heather got married, I also wore a moss green dress. So it's funny that both times I was a bridesmaid or maid of honor, I was wearing moss green, like, and 10 years apart. Like, it's pretty interesting. And my sister is still married to her husband, and my best friend is still married to her husband. So, what was the first thing you did this morning? I got up and I started working on the episode of We Are YTube that is coming out soon. And it's taken me a long time to edit. I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to split it into 2 videos. What was the first concert you ever went to? I think it was Celine Dion. And I took a guy that I had met, and he lived in another town, so we had to keep in touch via calls and snail mail. Isn't that funny? And when he picked me up for the date, he brought me to Subway, and I was pissed because I'd spent $55 a ticket, which at the time was a lot. And he only took me to Subway. So after that, I don't think I talked to him much. I was so bitchy when I was a teenager. Yeah. I'm sorry again, but he did only take me to Subway. I didn't realize that he was probably poor because we were both young. So I should have cut him some slack. First broken bone. I've never broken a bone, though I did get stress fractures when I was a competitive runner. And I couldn't walk without pain for 8 months. I got a bone scan. If I would have kept running, I would have probably broken my leg. It was bad. First piercing, I got my ears pierced. I have 4 piercings in this year, 3 in this, and I have my navel pierced. First foreign country you've gone to? The United States, and that's it. I've never been to Europe. I've never been to Asia. I've never been anywhere else. Isn't that crazy? I would love to travel. I just haven't. Other things have happened in my life, like the birth of my son, that have prevented me from being as free and as globetrotting as perhaps I wanted to be. Though, honestly, like, I'm kind of fine staying in the United States and Canada for now, but I know eventually I'll make it to Europe. First movie you remember seeing? Oh gosh, that was a really long time ago. I don't know. Something like E.T. probably came out when I was really young. I remember watching that when I was quite young. When was your first detention? I never got a detention. Never, ever. Even when I was cutting classes my last year of high school because I felt like it, I never, ever, ever got a detention. Who was your first roommate? I had a roommate when I moved to Montreal the first time. Other than that, I've only lived with my boyfriends. So it was a woman named Julie. She worked for the airport. She was a bit of a dominatrix. She had like hooks in her bedroom because she used to do stuff. That was her first time. That was my first time being around S&M. So let's wrap this up. What were the first lessons you ever took? Oh, Jesus. Lessons? Oh, okay. I thought you meant like life lessons. I took Scottish dancing, and I was too attached to my mummy, so I kept running up to my mummy during the class. So and the teacher tried to scold me by putting lipstick on my hand, and yeah, and so then after that I quit and I never went back. Though I did end up taking dance classes on my own when I got older. So and finally, who was the first person beauty related on YouTube you ever watched? I think it was Michelle Phan. Of course it was Michelle Phan. Everybody's first was Michelle Phan. But I don't watch her. Like, I think she's very, very talented. But I kind of don't like her voice very much. So my name is Dave Said I Make Cool Things. I talk about cool things, and this was very long again. If you want to do this, I'm going to put the questions in the comment section as well as in the video description. And it's called the My First Time Tag. When was your first time? Woo, woo, woo.